the image is a little bit truncated. A little bit of positioning, I'll skip that. What's new, so I can try to keep you updated on what's changed in the last, I would say, almost a year. From an inventory standpoint, we're going to go through different disciplines, if you will, of management of IT. Well, it's actually much more than that. I'm talking about what Spiceworks covers. So inventory, troubleshooting. We're going to talk about on-premise and cloud. There's a lot of discussion in the community about desktop and cloud and where is all that going. So I'm going to try to explain and maybe demystify it a little bit. Of course, we'll talk about help desk as well. I'll wrap up in one slide. Then Mara and Sean will go and we'll have a Q&A session. All right, so the message here is what this is supposed to reflect is the fact that IT is very complicated. Managing IT is very complicated. There are some extremely sophisticated tools, from SMB kind of tools, with probably what mostly you guys run, to very complicated, expensive, enterprise class products. The point we're making here is we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're not trying to sell these very expensive, complicated, hard to deploy tools. We'll leave that to the others. We're trying to fit to the essential needs that we think, as we understand, that you guys have. Maybe security is clearly a theme that we're going to have to think more, right? It's just very interesting things during the last 30 minutes. That was enlightening. Well, with the security is key, obviously, but that was very interesting. Anyway, for now, what we call the essentials of what we cover at Spiceworks is inventory, monitoring, troubleshooting, and help desk. So what we're going to try to do moving forward is do that well, maybe even better than we've done in the past, and leave the more complicated tool aiming at really doing a fine job at optimizing your IT, or the very sophisticated tool, the best of breed kind of tools that company like IBM and these guys can have. We're going to leave that to these guys and just focus on the essentials again. All right, like I said, for us, what we consider is the bare minimum you have to do if you want to manage your IT, in our opinion, is be able to discover what you have. It's a discipline called inventory. Monitor what you have. Is my stuff at least up and running, and does it perform? Then when you have an issue, helping you with troubleshooting, and obviously tracking those issues and supporting your end users with help desk type of tools. All right, so we'll start with inventory and the cloud version. So we didn't call it inventory cloud or cloud inventory, because that's extremely confusing for people, because people think it's about inventorying the cloud, the workloads you have in the cloud. That's not what it is. It's about the tool itself works in the cloud and can actually inventory your on-prem network. So for that reason, we avoided cloud in the name, and we called it inventory online, kind of like Office 365 as Excel online, same kind of idea from the name. So we released that tool, the first version, in January of 17. At that time, it was called IP Scanner. All it could do is basically scan your network. You're going to the UI. The UI was in the cloud. You were downloading a small agent called the IP Scanner. You run the scanner, and it basically IP sweep your ping sweeps the different subnets you configure in it, and tells you what's connected to your devices. In March, we integrated it with the cloud help desk. So when you discover a device with that, you could, if you want to open a ticket, you could do it with the cloud help desk. Cloud help desk is much older; it's about 3 years old now. So there is some kind of integration between the two. Then we went deeper, because the scanner was very simple, very efficient. You don't even need to put a password or admin credential. It just does ping sweep, and that's all it does. It retrieves IP, MAC, somehow the operating system and the vendor. But we wanted to go deeper, and we made the choice to go not WMI, and I know there's a lot of discussions about not using WMI to kind of deeply scan and inventory servers and workstations. We have a long WMI history because of desktop inventory. It's pretty complicated to make it run well. There's a lot of issues there, from WMI not running on the machine to WMI being buggy, from a bunch of issues. And we said, all right, we're going to try something else called agent-based. In other words, to get the deep computer scan that you could have with desktop inventory, you could have it with the now we would require to have to run an agent on workstations and servers. It's a little bit more work up front, because you need to push that agent, so you can do it with GPO or with kind of PDQ deployment exploits of the world, or whatever your favorite software distribution system is, or just manually or emailing it, and hopefully people won't believe it's a scam. Anyway, once you run the agent, once you've passed that is way more simple. The agent runs, it retrieves the information, it reports to the cloud, and the inventory, the information just shows up in the UI, and you don't have to worry about anything. The agent self-updates, so that's a way easier. That's a way easier system. So far, we're pretty happy with it. Sure, some people don't like agents. Well, some people don't like WMI. I'm not saying we will never do WMI, but so far we're kind of happy with the agent. And in September, right before Spiceworks last year, we've listened to you guys, and a bunch of you guys said, yeah, that's cool to be able to discover, but my responsibility as an IT pro in terms of devices and stuffs and monitor and whatever goes beyond what can be discovered. I have a bunch of stuff in spare closets, for example. I have responsibility for them. I want them in that list, and at that point, that list can become the trusted repository of all my assets, what can be discovered, but also what cannot be discovered. So now you can manually configure devices that are non-discoverable because they're just not connected into inventory online. That's fairly fresh, right? Don't try to compare, you could obviously, but if you compare desktop inventory with the inventory online, there's a lot of differences feature-wise. You see the old one is 12 years old. That's, I don't know if everybody knows that, but that's actually how Spiceworks started. The community actually started after inventory. You had to be an inventory user at some point, kind of funny, to be part of the community. So that inventory is really in the genes and the DNA of the company. And of course, it's extremely feature-rich, and this one is not as feature-rich. It will become richer. We're investing a lot on it. It will never have the same features because the need 12 years ago are not the need now. So they're gonna be comparable but not identical. Troubleshooting. We released about a year and a half ago, actually 2 years ago, something called the connectivity dashboard. That was kind of the first experiment at the time. The idea here is to answer in a very simple way, that just one visual snapshot is, what's the state of the connectivity between my end users, which are basically lines here on the screen, and the typical resources on my AT that they need to do their job every day. If they need access to the printer, that printer can be modeled as a column in that grid. If they need access to Office 365, you can configure Office 365 as a column in that grid. If they need access to a shared file server, that can be modeled in there. So everything that has an IP address can be pinged, or a URL that could be HTTP'd. You can configure it. It takes really a minute as a column here. And once you've deployed the agent, the same agent I was talking about a minute ago on the inventory, the same agent does both. It scans the detail of the workstation and can do the ping test or the HTTP test, the same agent. Well, then you're going to get that. If you see a red line like the second to last column, it means that this application, for every line, every workstation is not reachable. This application is likely down. You better do something about it. If you see a vertical orange line, it means that every workstation, every line can reach it, but it's in orange state, which means that it's slow. It probably means that this application, maybe not the application, maybe the network between you and the application, but something is slow on the path. It doesn't tell you what, but it tells you there is something to investigate. I say it doesn't tell you what, actually in some cases it could. If you deploy this on all your workstations and you saw one site, let's say the first 10 lines are the Austin site and the second 20 lines are the Milwaukee site, well, if you see one block of cells being orange and one block of cells being green, well, that tells you the slowness is true for one site but not for the other. Therefore, it can't be the application, it's got to be the network from Milwaukee, let's say, and not Austin. So by deduction, the more you deploy agents, by deduction, the more you can troubleshoot what's the scope of the problem and where that problem is possibly located. All right, troubleshooting. I just talked about troubleshooting a little bit before, so that's another thing. You may have noticed that a year ago and right before Spiceworks, we did two things. We integrated as a standalone tool a tool coming from Zoho, which is called Zoho Assist, and we called it different. That's actually a special version. They can craft it for us only, and it's a completely free tool. And basically, that's a tool you can get if you go to the /tools page and you click on remote support. That is probably the simplest remote support tool you can do. It's actually pretty powerful. Who's tried it here? Who has ever tried it? Okay, all right. So for the others, if you go to /tools, just use it. Gives you a URL. You give that URL to your user. The user clicks on it, downloads an agent, and literally immediately the session starts, and you can start remote controlling that workstation. So that was the standalone tool. We did that 2 years ago. We had some very good feedback, good usage. And last year, before Spiceworks, we actually integrated the tool into Cloud Help Desk. So that's a Cloud Help Desk screen. You see there the remote support button, and if you click on it, the same scenario happens. You have the URL. You give it to your end user, and when the session starts, you have a trace of that session in the ticket. When the session ends, you have a trace of that in the ticket. So you keep a trace that you have established contact with that user. He's trying to solve his issue. Maybe it doesn't matter. For some people, it's very important to be able to prove, yep, I actually spent 20 minutes on that guy trying to walk around or fix his problem. It's limited in terms of functionality. It's not the full feature set of Zoho Assist. You can upgrade to the paid version, but this one has basically it has attended session. It doesn't have non-attended session. It means that you need to have, at least for the beginning, the end user at the other end. Remember, because you give him the link and he clicks the link, or she clicks the link and download the agent. So they need to do something, but then it's a pretty good tool. People say that it's usually very simple and pretty fast. So we have very good feedback on that tool with our partners. All right, so on-premise versus cloud. So it's been a long discussion. There's quite a bit of history. I'm going to try to keep it brief here. About a year and a half ago, we started something called Desktop 8.0, which was an attempt to obviously improve on Desktop 7.5, which is the current version of Desktop. And I would say mostly from a performance standpoint, we have a significant number of people, and I'm sure there are some in this room that, especially from a non-prem help desk, desktop help desk, are kind of suffering from a performance standpoint. Database is sometimes pretty slow when you have a number of tickets or a long history of tickets. So we looked at that pretty deeply. Exhausted pretty much every possible option, 64-bit database and multi-threaded database. Anyway, I'll spare you the gory details. The idea being that we don't believe that we could come up with a new database, given the way the database is today ingrained kind of in the product. It would be a lot of effort and it would have been extremely expensive. And we explored a third route, if you will, which was to take the Cloud Help Desk code, running in the cloud, and try to make it run on-premise. So try to give you a version of that thing that could run on-premise. And that actually a pretty promising, you'll see the next slide, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. And that's a very promising for a very simple reason, is when you think of it, Cloud Help Desk was designed as a cloud tool, therefore as a multi-tenant tool. So it's inherently designed to scale. Right now we have dozens of thousands running on Cloud Help Desk. Just imagine if you took that code and I gave it to you, well, you would have running on your server something that's been designed to run 10,000 people like you. So kind of course, it's going to scale because it's been designed for that. So it's literally as simple as that. There's a little bit of work, but it's nowhere close to the work that we would have to do to make Desktop 7.5 scale like you want it to be. So because of all that, we said, all right, we stopped Desktop 8.0 and we said, we're never going to get there, at least not in a cost-effective manner. We're not planning any new functional version of 7.5. It means that if there are 7.5 patches, so unless there are severe 7.5 issues from a security standpoint, in which case we will patch it, otherwise we're not going to do functional evolution. By the way, it is a very feature-rich product. We have some people telling us it's actually even too many features, and so I think we have the right balance of feature and complexity here. It is completely safe to continue to download and use Desktop 5. It is still supported. If you reach support, they will help you as much as they can. Again, you will see patches only for severe issue, not for benign issues. It is still offered for download, it's still supported. There is a blog post that explains all this here. So that's the story of why did we stop inventory 8.0 and why did we embark into something different, which is what we call help desk, the common code base, which is just what I just explained. So think of it as that help desk version designed to work in the cloud, but think of it as a local edition, right? We kind of modified it so it could run in a single company's environment. That's still an experiment. We've done some good progress in Q4. We're still looking at it. You haven't seen, for those who have been followed that kind of thread of work, you've seen a couple of betas in Q4. We haven't done more than because we're still thinking about it. There's some stuff happening from an engineering standpoint, some ideas we have here, but the project is still very much alive, and hopefully we're going to be able to continue to fund it and work on it. There is a beta version on it. We're not super active on it, but if really somebody's super interested, we can get you access to that beta. You can run it. If you run it, it has to be an OV or an Hyper-V. There is no Windows install. That's kind of the thing where, why did you not? You're happy with that?
I am very happy with it, yeah.
Okay.
It's easy to change out, redo.
Okay, so raise your hands. Who would be happy if you have that thing? Who would be happy with an OV or an Hyper-V and would not need a Windows install? Okay? Okay. Who would absolutely need a Windows install and why? Okay. Why was that?
I'm just not versed in Hyper-V.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
I'll beat you into submission.
All right, the result of the beta, just to finish on this, well, in terms of performance, right? I see that some of you who struggle with the performance today can see little sparks in your eyes, right? This thing is really fast, and we did some tests with the large database. We're really hopeful that the performance is going to get there, and of course, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but with the .ova, that's compatible with VMware?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. VMware.
So, net of all that, a lot of information. I'm trying to go fast because I see Maurice Shake wants to speak to you. All right. So, what do you do if you are a desktop user right now, whether it's inventory or help desk or both? You need to be above 74, 75, 74, because before that there are some features that are not going to work because at that time we moved to HTTPS only for security reasons. Some features were still relying on HTTP before that, they don't work now, so you need to be on 74 or after. You have nothing to do short term. Keep using it, keep working with it, there you have nothing to do. If you're a desktop inventory user, we recommend to test inventory online as a potential mid-term or long-term replacement. If you're using a lot of the features of desktop inventory, you're not going to find them in inventory online. If you're using it just basically to scan and give you some detailed information about your workstations, you should take a look at inventory online. I'm not saying you're going to be happy with it, but you're going to be much closer, and with the fast progress we make, you might be able to find something you like there. There's a built-in survey, and let us know your opinion. I'm literally looking at that survey every day, so I'm really keen to see your opinion here. I didn't put anything about the common code base, the Cloud Help Desk beta, because right now we're not active. We're doing other stuff related but different. So stay tuned on that. There's gonna be news in the coming weeks or months. We'll let you know what we think, do, and plan to do. If you really want the beta, if it's really important for you, we can open up a few more betas. All right, wrap up. We continue, so there's been a lot of questions. There's been stuff like, is Spiceworks dead? Where is desktop? No, Spiceworks not dead. Yes, there are some changes because after 12 years, it's irresponsible to not starting thinking about changing technologies, right? In today's IT world, 12 years is ancient. That is really old technology. It becomes cost prohibitive for us to maintain it, so we have to move. So we continue on inventory troubleshooting and user management. That continues to be the focus of what we call the essentials. Monitoring use cases is still in the plan. Many of you are probably also using Network Monitor, which is kind of in the same situation, probably from a quality standpoint not as good. You had to roll back one version from 1.5 to 1.4. We're not happy with that, but that was a complicated story. The plan for monitoring is we're not giving up. Network Monitor is still available for download and still available in terms of support. The plan is to beef up connectivity dashboard to make it the future monitoring tool. When you think about remember the grid with the red column and stuff, what is it if it's not just pinging and testing your targets? What is it if it's not the basics of monitoring? It doesn't do performance monitoring, but it does status monitoring. Is my stuff up and down? Is my stuff reachable? Which is the basics of monitoring. So we miss a few features. We don't have alerting in Condash. You cannot have a product that you call monitoring if you don't have alerting. You need to have that. So that's kind of on the list of stuff we're working on right now. So that's the plan for monitoring. Is as soon as Condash connectivity dashboard is rich enough from a feature standpoint, that's going to become our new kind of path for monitoring, which again we consider being one of the essential features. The strategic direction for the future of what we call internally the manage or manage your IT portfolio. Accuracy of data, many people tell us, for example, for desktop inventory, I'm not happy with the accuracy of what I'm discovering. My network changes constantly, you can't catch up with the updates. We're hearing that from many people, we're conscious of that, we're working on it. So accuracy, and keep it simple. No WMI for now. The agent, we believe, is at least for now the best approach. Being able to release feature-rich time to market and performance, right? Performance issues. The common code base for help desk. We could do the same thing for inventory online. Inventory online could become the future inventory on-prem at some point. And it's not decided because inventory online is much more recent than cloud help desk, which is 3 years old. So we're kind of behind that, but the philosophy could completely be the same. Right now, we treat on-prem and cloud deployment. It's not always feasible, depending on what event and what release you're looking at, but we're kind of treating on-prem and cloud deployments with an equal investment and priority. Right now, my guesstimate, it's a gut feeling, it's very difficult to estimate, is that about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we talked to people about the cloud stuff, that was basically a third, 70%, a third were, yeah, I'll go with the cloud product, I have no issue with that, and 70% were kind of, yeah, well, maybe not so much. And now, last Spiceworks, for example, Spiceworks is for us a great way to talk to many of you and kind of gauge, well, what the feeling is. I think we're kind of more to 50-50, so there is definitely momentum of people willing and accepting to go to cloud tools. If some people want to contradict me here, I'm absolutely happy to hear their input. That's how we form that opinion. So right now we think it's 50-50, but if you have different input, I'm happy to hear it. And some experimentation with vendor integrations, so the Zoho stuff was that, that could become one of the way we create connections. If you listen to Spiceworks, then Mara is going to talk to that is going to talk about that in a minute. So we believe that the future of Spiceworks is, among others, to become a marketplace, continue to help you with everything, the forums and the tools and the apps, but doing a better job at connecting you with the right vendor in a way which is respectful of your time, which puts a technical person to talk to and not sometimes a pushy sales guy. So creating better connections could be, is clearly some aspect of the strategy. We've discussed that during Spiceworks. So this could be one of the ways. I'm not saying this is how we will create connections, but if we expose you to the technology of that company, that's a way to connect you to them. That's a way to make you discover what they're good at and what their product is for free, without the sales guys involved, without having to give you don't even give your email address right now. That's interesting. You can test the Zoho technology. You don't even need to give them your email address. You're doing it with the Spiceworks membership that you have, and we're not giving them your membership, your email address when you test that product. So we're experimenting. I'm not saying it's going to become the future, but that's an interesting way that we see to potentially connecting you with these guys. That's all I had. Happy to take maybe a question.